Hello, and thanks for tuning in to learn more about writing about your science in EOS, the news magazine published by AGU. I'm Tim Olson, the senior science editor here at EOS, and I work with scientist authors every day to help prepare broadly engaging articles about their research and their perspectives, applying the points and recommendations that we'll go over here. In this video, I'm going to walk through the basic steps of the editing process, mention a few aspects about what makes for engaging, successful articles, and go through several pieces of guidance that we often give to scientist authors to help them write their articles. In the following video, I'll talk about a couple of articles we published previously and walk through some example edits to highlight the points I raise here. Okay, so what is the editing process like at EOS? This slide lays out the main steps to give you a sense of how it works. After you've submitted an article proposal through EOS's submission form and it's been accepted, the next step is that you'll be invited to Basecamp, which is the online platform we use to correspond with authors and exchange drafts, edits, images, and other materials. We'll also send our author guidelines that apply to all articles, as well as some tailored guidance based on your proposal. Next, you will write and submit your first draft to Basecamp. We generally ask authors to send a draft within 6 weeks of their proposal acceptance, although that's often flexible. The length and editing the length of the editing stage itself can vary somewhat in the number of times we go back and forth and the number of editors who look at an article, as well as in how substantial the editing is. When the editors are satisfied that a manuscript is written well for EOS's audience, we send it to one or more of our science advisors to review. The science advisors provide expert feedback on the science content, looking for potential omissions, inaccuracies, or questions they think should be addressed. If they identify any issues or questions, we ask authors to address these and send back a new draft. The next step is copy editing, which typically goes quickly. Our copy editors check and correct all the fine points of grammar, punctuation, reference formatting, etc., to make sure everything aligns with EOS's usual styles. After that, we wrap up any loose ends, making sure, for example, that we have the necessary permissions to run photos or figures, as well as a signed copyright agreement from the corresponding author of an article. The last stage is to send the article to our production team, who prepares it for publication and posts the article online. We are a digital first publication, meaning that the vast majority of the articles we publish appear online only and are posted shortly after they're completed and ready. A small selection of articles is also used in our monthly print issues, and that selection can happen anytime within about 6 months of an article running online. There are a number of elements that can help articles engage large, broad audiences, including colleagues in your field and throughout the Earth and space sciences, as well as non-scientists who make up about half of EOS's readership. There isn't a one-size-fits-all model, but again, there are some common elements. So often the presentation and tone of an article can help make research sound appealing to readers who aren't already familiar with it or interested in it. When scientists can convey in their words why they are passionate about their own work or for an issue relevant to their work, that goes a long way. Including compelling details or anecdotes about the process that went into getting results or coming to conclusions can also be very engaging. For example, did you overcome challenges in your field or lab work? Were you surprised by results you got? And if so, why were you surprised? These sorts of details are typically omitted from scholarly papers, but they work well in EOS articles and can help readers better understand the scientific process and better relate to the scientists doing the work. If you're writing an opinion, novel perspectives and ideas, and specific actionable solutions or recommendations will increase the usefulness and impact of the article. Next, if you're talking about a topic or issue that's relevant for a lot of readers but isn't one they think about often, that can also make for a great article. For example, we published a feature discussing how the choice of color palettes, hues, shading, and other related characteristics influence how people perceive and interpret data through visualizations, and thus what conclusions are drawn from those data. This is something that's relevant for any scientist who has ever created or used data visualizations, and the article resonated with a lot of people, and it's remained popular well after it was published. Images can also help illustrate and humanize research and improve reader engagement if they are chosen selectively. Images should be appropriate for a broad audience, not highly technical like figures or data plots you might include in a peer-reviewed research article. We love interesting and well-composed photos more than anything, from fieldwork or travels, for example. Explanatory illustrations and diagrams can also be great as long as they don't overload readers with information. Lastly, if an article is written at a level and using language that are appropriate for a broad audience, that's a huge plus. Helping you to break down technical language and other scientific jargon is typically the focus of much of our editing, and we may reword phrases or substitute different words to make your research more accessible. I will point out that although we don't always edit articles heavily, authors are sometimes surprised at the amount of editing and feedback we give. The goal for us is to help scientists convey their expertise clearly and in an engaging fashion, and we do that by applying our expertise in writing and science communication. So it's meant to be a collaborative and mutually beneficial process. The editing and guidance that scientists authors receive from EOS is highly individualized to each article. We do our best to tailor advice and edits based on the tone and topic of a piece, and also to maintain the author's voice. That said, there are several pieces of guidance we give commonly and questions we often ask of authors. So here are four main examples, all of which overlap to an extent, and ultimately feedback into the first, which is to consider your audience as you're writing. So put yourself in the shoes of a student, a scientist, or a policymaker, and imagine you are reading about a topic that you might have general knowledge about, but that's out of your area of expertise. What kind of introduction, what level of detail, and what explanations and background would be helpful for you in that situation? Second is to avoid jargon, explain technical concepts, and be concise. Including a lot of jargon and writing at too high a level is a great way to lose the interest of an audience of non-specialists. However, sometimes mentioning certain terms or concepts is unavoidable, and in those cases, do your best to explain them as straightforwardly as you can. Third is to fill in the blanks for readers. Another way to say this is to connect all the dots. In other words, go through your science, your reasoning, and your points step by step, keeping in mind where you might be skipping over explanations that would be helpful for non-specialists, or you might be jumping right to a conclusion and assuming readers will easily follow you. Finally, give examples. This is fairly self-explanatory, but it's often overlooked. Do you talk about how new technology or methods allow researchers to study a topic in more detail than ever? That's great. So what are some of those technologies and methods, and how do they allow this? Do you say that your research reveals new insights into X, Y, or Z? That's fantastic. Insights such as what, and how or why are these insights useful? Including tangible, accessible examples is a great way to engage, inform, and convince an audience, and it is almost always more effective in conveying a point or a message than simply stating the point alone. Okay, I hope this guidance so far proves useful as you think about working with EOS. In the next video, I'll walk through a few specific examples from manuscripts that may help you in your writing. Thank you very much for your attention and interest, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. And don't forget to stay connected with EOS and AGU.